Today I'm going to start making my autumn outfit, and the reason I'm standing up, I wanted to show you two true vintage blouses from the 40s which just illustrate the kind of beautiful yoke designs that they used to have in this era. So even though these are ready to wear blouses, there's this light blue one you can see has this gorgeous scalloped detail around the yoke, the covered buttons and the pretty embroidered design. And this peach one, lovely pin tucks, top stitch collar, and just these little pretty yokes. And the pattern that I'm going to do likewise just has this very pretty yoke design with these scallops. So I started by cutting out the pattern pieces, as you can see on the floor with my little helpers. They weren't too keen on this particular game. They could of course go and sit on the sofa, where they're very welcome to do so, but why do that when you can sit on your island dog bed and look sort of put out? So the first thing I did was work on the front yoke, just turning under the scallops and clipping into the corners to create a nice neat finish. And then I turned under the front neck facing piece and pressed it down in the same way. And I just pinked the raw edges along the scalloped edge that was turned under and pressed. So I'm just then pinning the back facing piece over the back bodice, and you measure the centre line and just draw that in with tailor's chalk. And I'm just pointing out with the scissors that you stitch either side of that line and then cut down into it, and that will then later be turned into the inside to form the facing piece. Then I gathered up the front bodice, and I was getting slightly nervous at this point by the huge size of the front of the blouse, and the pattern is actually a size too big for me, and I didn't do a mock-up because I couldn't face doing all those scallops, and I thought it was only one size and quite a loose blouse, it could be okay. But then that front piece did look quite enormous. So I started by pinning the centre front of the yoke to the centre front of the bodice, and then adjusting the gathers to fit either side from there. And after pinning, I tacked the yoke carefully down onto the bodice, making sure that the gathers were even, and then they're just top stitched in place, just going carefully around each scallop with my lovely old Singer sewing machine. And then I just held it up to make absolutely sure that it wasn't going to be completely enormous. I'm still not entirely convinced, but it does have some little, if you'd call them darts, more like little kind of pleats at the front to go. They're at the front and back actually, and they're narrow at the base, and then they just fan out towards the bust area to create that kind of fullness that this blouse has at the bust. And then I'm back to my hand crank Singer with its lovely decals, just to stitch those in position. It's very soothing working a hand crank sewing machine. It's kind of like a little therapy in itself. And then the front and back pieces are joined together at the side seams and the shoulders, so I'm just pinning those in position before sewing those together as well. I've got a kind of variety of pin cushions. I'm quite fond of pin cushions. That's my half doll pin cushion that you can see there. And then the front facing piece is pinned in position and joined to the back facing piece at the shoulder seams. And the tailor's tacks just give you an idea of how to align the facing with the yoke before it's stitched into place. And then the blouse joins at the back either with a zip or a button and thread loop, which is what I'm going to do. And then the sleeves are pinned together right sides facing before stitching. And then the sleeves are gathered just at the top to create a puffy shoulder. And the edge of the cuff is turned under and pinked and then turned under again to create a channel for elastic to be inserted. And I'm just checking the width of the elastic is good to go through the channel. And then measuring the point of my arm where the cuff's going to go around, they're 3/4 sleeves, so I'm just measuring that length and then allowing a little extra for overlap. So with the turning stitch down and just a small gap left for inserting the elastic, I've attached a safety pin to one end of the elastic, and I'm just going to pull the elastic through the channel and making sure not to just pull it through and lose the end by just pinning the elastic at one end, and then pulling it all the way through, and then when you get to the end, you just overlap the ends of the elastic and stitch the elastic securely together, and then you can just slip stitch that little gap down in position. And then I stitch the sleeves into the armholes, made up the shoulder pads and stitch those in to finish. And here is the blouse. And as you can see, I decided to emphasize the scallops by stitching on a really pretty vintage ribbon that I bought recently at a vintage fair, and I'll show you a little close-up of it because it's made of little green and lilac violet little kind of roses. And having gone to the trouble of all those scallops, I was quite keen to emphasize them, and I'm just wearing it with a little 50s hat and a little glass 40s brooch, dangly violets, and just showing you how it does up at the back with a little thread loop and a little painted wood vintage button I had. And this is another little styling option with a brown beret and a little chestnut and acorn corsage tucked into it for a nice little sort of autumnal kind of woodland theme. And it's got its nice little puffy sleeves. I suppose it's slightly on the baggy side, although it's saved by the fact it does actually nip in a little at the waist. And I'm just also tried this with another little brooch, which is a sweet little hanging monkey brooch, also from the 40s. It's got a nice little front for showing off brooches, which is a good thing as I have quite a collection of brooches. And this is just to show you the effect from a bit of a distance with my brown check circle skirt. Yes, I probably could do with having done it in my actual size as opposed to one size too big, but I don't think it really matters. It's quite a kind of loose fitting blouse, and I really love the way just the simple neckline is like perfect for displaying brooches. And I think 3/4 sleeves, I'm waving my arms so you can see them, they're so useful. And you've got this kind of, they've got this like little elasticated, so you can kind of, and quite a good little length. So all that said, I shall look forward to seeing you next week for more sewing adventures. Oh, before I forget, if you could like and subscribe, it does actually really help me because, you know, the algorithm. So thank you very much and see you next week. Bye.